Hello and welcome to the Beckoning Bookshelf. I am your host, Jeffrey Ashcraft. Since I'll be talking more about the Lord of the Rings this year, since it's the whole 25th anniversary of Peter Jackson's Fellowship of the Ring and all that, and just because I really like Lord of the Rings and want to talk about it, I figured I would talk about the guides and references that I have for Lord of the Rings and Tolkien, just so you can know where I'm getting some of my information when I talk about it. So, yeah, here we go. To start off, I'd be remiss to not talk about, or at least mention, the appendices in the Lord of the Rings. So for those unfamiliar, at the end of Lord of the Rings, or I suppose The Return of the King, if you have the separated copies, there's 6 appendices. It takes up this much space. I should have done a copy of Return of the King so you could really see how much of the book it takes up. Well, they have 6 appendices covering history of Middle-earth, like the First and the Second Age, family lines, and also more details on the languages of Middle-earth. And it's all very interesting. I don't know if it really counts as a guide, per se, but it does provide more information on Middle-earth, so you can learn just more about it, so I guess it counts well enough. So, just figured I would at least mention the appendices in The Lord of the Rings. Which, by the way, did actually come out with The Return of the King. The appendices were not a later edition. They came out when Return of the King was first published back in 1955, I believe. So, on to the guides themselves. The first one is the first one I ever owned. The J.R.R. Tolkien Handbook, a comprehensive guide to his life, writings, and world of Middle-earth. This was written by Colin Duriez? I don't know. Colin, if I'm getting your name wrong, I'm sorry. But, like I said, this was the first one I ever owned. I found this book when I was in college at the library, and I had no idea that this book existed. I had no idea that books like this even existed, because, again, this was when I was, awakening my interest in books, when I was actually starting to pay attention to books. So I checked it out, loved it, thought it was awesome, really wanted a copy for myself, and found one at Powell's Books in Portland, Oregon. And yeah, it's a great copy, by the way. I found it in this condition, used. So whoever had this book first, good for you. You take good care of your books. So this book was first published in 1992, and then later republished in 2002 with a slight change in the subtitle. So like I said, this is subtitled A Comprehensive Guide. Well, in 2002, they changed it to A Concise Guide, which I think is rather accurate, which we'll talk about that in a minute. So another thing I'm going to do when I talk about these guides is I'll talk about their strengths and weaknesses just kind of generally and briefly, at least in my opinion. So one of the major strengths for this guide itself is it not only includes information on Middle-earth, but also information on Tolkien, on his views on certain subjects, his relationship with people, particular people, and also the history of some of the books themselves and his writings. So it's not only a guide to Middle-earth, but it's also a history book on Tolkien and his life and his views, which the other guides do not include. They don't have the information on Tolkien that this book has, which that is very, very cool. And that's its major strength. The information in the book is largely viewed as accurate. I haven't really found anything inaccurate in this book, but now we jump to the weaknesses, one of which being it is not a comprehensive guide to Middle-earth. There is a lot of Middle-earth information that is not in this book. So if you want to be a Middle-earth master, this is not your book. You need a different guide. So that's why I think the change in the subtitle to A Concise Guide, it fits. It's accurate. It's a better subtitle. So the other weakness I would say, and this is kind of a weakness for a lot of guides, so maybe I won't mention it for the others, but it's kind of hard to figure out where the information came from. So if you're reading something in here and you're like, I wonder where that came from, there's no real sources. So you kind of can't go and verify it for yourself. But like I said, this is largely accepted just as a good beginner, novice type guide if you just don't really want to delve deep into the lore of Middle-earth. So that's the first one. Second, I did not design this well because I got to lift this out and it's heavy. Got it. It's positioning. I'm strong. But we have David Day's The World of Tolkien. So this is a collection of David Day books, all on a variety of subjects concerning Middle-earth, and like Tolkien somewhat, but not as much as, the Tolkien Handbook. The publication of this one's a little more complicated. So David Day, between 1979 and 2003, he published a variety of books on Middle-earth and Tolkien. Then in 2013, he published a dictionary of Tolkien, which is kind of a conglomeration of his previous books. Not everything, but most of it. Then, between 2015 and 2020, he published these other copies. Well, these other books on Middle-earth, and then eventually it just became a collection. And he's published other books that aren't in this collection on Tolkien and Middle-earth. Which I also have to say about David Day books, if you see any Tolkien reference or guide in a store, it's probably a David Day. I see David Day's books everywhere. There's a lot of them. And also I have a dictionary of Tolkien, but he also has an encyclopedia of Tolkien. What's the difference? I have no idea. I just thought of that now. I don't know the difference between a dictionary and encyclopedia, and why there's two of them. Like why David Day has both. Money? Anyways, so strengths and weaknesses concerning David Day. Strengths, I would say one of its primary strengths is these books are nice. They're good looking. They're well made. It's faux leather, and so it feels great. It's not real leather, so that's great. And it feels awesome. There's great designs on the covers. The pages, there's great artwork. Just from a variety of different artists. The pages themselves are designed to be like fantasy type, fantasy aesthetic, and it's just great. They look awesome. They're really fun to look through. That's a massive win. The other win, I would say, the other strength is there's a variety of information. Well, there's a lot of information on a variety of topics here. Like I said, you have the dictionary of Tolkien, but you also have the Atlas. You have one on battles. You have one on the heroes. That's the one we were just looking at. You have the one on the dark forces. There's a whole book on hobbits. Then this one is like what? The Ring Legends. The Ring Legends of Tolkien is this last one. So there's a lot of information to read and to go through here. And that's another strength. Now, if you're a Tolkien enthusiast and you're kind of freaking out right now because I'm talking positive about David Day, it's okay. Don't worry. I'm getting to the weaknesses now. So, the weaknesses for David Day's guides for Middle-earth. These are largely viewed among Tolkien enthusiasts and hardcore Tolkien fans as not legit. Like, if you read David Day, you are not, a valid Tolkien fan type thing. If you accept these books as valid, no. You're mistaken, you're misguided, you've fallen to the power of the ring, you're lost. Yeah, now this is due to a few reasons. First off, there appears to have been, actually false information printed in these books before. Now, I tried to look up some of those instances and try to find them in these copies. I didn't find them. So, for example, I saw one person claim that David Day's dictionary stated that Celebrimbor was married to Galadriel in the Third Age, with the Lord of the Rings, and in the War of the Ring, and that's not in mine. So maybe some of these errors were corrected, maybe not, because I didn't look comprehensively. I didn't check everything to see what's accurate and what isn't. But there has been talks of errors and just flat out incorrect information in these books. The other major problem when it comes to information in these books is not everything is verified, but it's still presented as fact. So, for example, when it comes to Tom Bombadil, this book, the Dictionary of Tolkien, I should just leave this out. The Dictionary of Tolkien, it actually refers to Tom Bombadil as a Maiar. But that's not confirmed. That's not verified. We don't know if Tom Bombadil was a Maiar or not. And these other guides actually state that. They state that, hey, he might be a Maiar. We don't know. But this actually says he was a Maiar. Now, we have no idea where David Day is getting this information. We don't know if it's legitimate or not. If he found it somewhere, like some secret stash of Tolkien's writings or something, or if it's just his own interpretation of Tom Bombadil. We don't know, but it's also not like... He doesn't... Well, it's, as I said, he's stating it as fact. He doesn't differentiate what is unverified and what is verified in these works. So... You may be getting some misinformation, or you may become misinformed if you just solely read these books. The third reason that these books are not really accepted among Tolkien fans is that they are not authorized by the Tolkien estate. I even have a sticker, on these books that it's not authorized by the Tolkien estate or HarperCollins Publishers, which has the rights to Lord of the Rings. So this is not official Lord of the Rings information. Like at all, in any form or manner, in any way. So just to make that very, very, very clear. So I hope for the Tolkien enthusiasts, I hope that makes them feel a little better, a little calmer. My views on these books, I still like them. I still think they're great. I still think they look amazing. I mean, look at it. They look fantastic. And the art is great. I think they're very well designed. And I think they're very well written as well, except, of course, for the fact that some of the information, it's just not verifiable. So that's a major problem. And to circumvent that, I just don't use these as a primary source. I would say most of the information you get in these books is accurate. And if you view it as David Day's opinion, then there you go. That's even more not verifiable, but it helps you keep it within context. If you just view it, hey, this is what David Day said, not Tolkien estate, not Tolkien himself. This is what David Day says. So still well written, still has some valuable information, but I don't use it as a primary resource. So there you go. That's David Day. And it's also interesting, like I said, that the David Day books are the ones that are everywhere. You see a guide, and it's David Day. And one could argue, well, that's because no one buys them. It's like, no, I just think there's a lot out there. Now, on to the last one. This is my latest addition to my Tolkien books. This is The Complete Guide to Middle-earth, the definitive guide to the world of J.R.R. Tolkien by Robert Foster. That is quite the title. Like, they want to make sure you know it's legit. Like, this is not only the complete guide, it's the definitive guide as well. So, yeah. Yep. This was first published actually in 1971. So text-wise, this is the oldest reference guide I have, apart from like the appendices in The Lord of the Rings itself. Well, what's interesting, because it's also like version-wise and book-wise, is also the newest one I have, because it's the latest, 2022, so fascinating. It was again republished. Oh, first off, when it was published in 1971, it was simply titled A Guide to Middle-earth. That was its title. Then in 1978, it was republished, doubled in length because now it added a bunch of information from the Silmarillion, which was published a year prior in 1977, and it gained the title A Complete Guide to Middle-earth. Well, I think The Complete Guide to Middle-earth. I think that's when it gained that title. And then it was republished again in 2001 to coincide with Peter Jackson's release of The Fellowship of the Ring. And then again, it was republished one more time in 2022 with now illustrations added by Ted Naismith? I'm going to say Naismith, because I don't know how to pronounce names. I don't. So, yeah, great illustrations, by the way. And also a slipcover edition, which is what I have. I have the slipcover edition. So, strengths and weaknesses for this book, for this guide. Well, the major strength is this is commonly viewed as the definitive guide for Lord of the Rings. The title is not inaccurate. This, if you want to become a master of Middle-earth, this is the book you want. You know, it's very comprehensive. It has a lot of information on Middle-earth. So there you go. I can't spell it out any more than that. So with what I saw and researched, when it comes to Tolkien enthusiasts, this is the guide that they prefer. Yeah. You show this guy, you'll actually get at least, I don't know, stuff, a little respect. I don't know. But the other strength of this, at least for this copy, the art by Ted is fantastic. It looks great and just really adds a lot to the book, to the guide itself, to the book. I love his art. The poster fell out. Let's put that over there. Now, weaknesses. I can't really think of any. They're like, it's a guide to Middle-earth, and it's pretty much comprehensive. So you get what you paid for, essentially. If I were to be real nitpicky, and I mean real nitpicky to find any type of weakness, I would say first, it doesn't really have any information on Tolkien himself. Now, that's not really a problem because, it's a complete guide to Middle-earth, not to Tolkien, like the Tolkien handbook. So, yeah, I don't expect to find anything about Tolkien in here, though it would be kind of nice. The other reason is it's the biggest guide I have. All the other ones are smaller, and this one's pretty huge, which is good. It just makes it harder to travel with, I guess. So there's some weaknesses for you. I don't know. But yeah, so when it comes to learning more about Lord of the Rings and referencing Lord of the Rings lore and stuff like that, this will be one of the guides I actually turn to mostly. Yeah. Well, yeah. I can't get it in the... Never mind. I won't put it in there. It doesn't want to go in. So, but those are the guides I have for Middle-earth and for Tolkien and for the Lord of the Rings. So what do you think? Do you have any guides to Middle-earth? Do you have any books that you use to reference a little bit more, to learn a little bit more about Tolkien or the Lord of the Rings or Middle-earth? Oh, there's one other thing I wanted to point out actually on the complete guide to Middle-earth. I forgot about this, and I think it's rather important to understand this guide itself. So it only has information for 4 of Tolkien's books that occur in Middle-earth. So not every single book from Tolkien that occurs in Middle-earth is referenced in this book. It only includes The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings, The Silmarillion, and The Adventures of Tom Bombadil. It doesn't have anything from Unfinished Tales or The Children of Húrin or any other book that takes place in Middle-earth. Only those 4 are the 4 that you get that are talked about in this guide. So there you go. I forgot about that, and I wanted to mention that. So this video is already plenty long. I should end it now. Thank you for being here. Is there anything that you want to know more about when it comes to Middle-earth? Is there any questions that you have? I'm not saying I'll be able to answer them or anything like that, but it'd be fun to see if I could find an answer. It'd be interesting. And I'll see if I can find anything in these books. Well, thank you again for being here. Thank you always for being here, and go find yourself a good book.